approximately 12% of the world's calories are exported by Russia and Ukraine. And last year, Russia exported something like 37 billion pounds of agriculture, and Ukraine, on the other hand, exported something like 27 billion pounds of agriculture. So they're feeding the world, and now with this whole war going on and with the sanctions going on Russia, this is going to affect the global supply chain, because for one, the Ukrainian farmers are having a lot of difficulty being able to plant crops this year for obvious reasons, because they have a war going on, and then you have a massive labor shortage of farmers in Ukraine because many of the farmers have either joined the war to fight or they've left. So now you have this massive shortage of farmers, and then some of the farmers that are left are having difficulty planting crops because you have a war going on. So Ukraine is not able to plant more crops for the 2022 harvest. And then on top of that, Ukraine has banned the exports of a number of different agricultural products from wheat to meat because they're facing their own humanitarian crisis, and they want to make sure that they have enough food to feed their own citizens. So they're not able to produce as much food as they could before. They're not exporting the food that they have because they want to make sure that they can feed their own citizens. And then we have sanctions on top of that on Russia. So a major portion of the world's agriculture is no longer going to be exported, and there's going to be much less being produced this year. This is where you're facing a dilemma here in the United States, because how are we going to combat this shortage of food coming from the breadbasket of the world? And some farmers have proposed farming on some protected lands. That way we have more land to grow products on, but that's been causing a lot of controversy because some people don't want to farm on this protected land. So there's been a whole dilemma of how can we farm more products here in the United States? And the second issue is the cost of farming has gone up so significantly because of the war. It turns out that the Russia and Belarus area are the biggest exporters of fertilizer in the world. These were things that I never knew until I started diving deep into learning about this. But now, because of the sanctions, we're not getting the fertilizer there. So now fertilizer costs have skyrocketed here in the United States. Just in the past few months, we've seen the prices of fertilizer skyrocket by 30%. So what that means is, one, the cost of farming has gone up, because if you want to keep using fertilizer, it's going to cost you a whole lot more, so you can expect higher prices for groceries because of that. And second, if you don't use fertilizer to kind of mitigate some of this cost, you could see a lower yield of your crops, which means a lower supply of food. And this is all happening at a time where we're already facing record high inflation, where we're already facing a big supply chain mess, and we're already facing an energy crisis causing the price of oil and gas to skyrocket. This is why pretty much every government official and every economist is telling you to prepare for higher grocery prices, because it looks like grocery prices will continue to go up. Now, if you're here in America, chances are that we're probably not going to see any sort of real food shortage or scarcity of food. So we're very fortunate about that. However, we might see the prices of groceries continue to rise. You might see some empty shelves, especially if it has to do with things like wheat or bread, because we're going to see a shortage of wheat coming from that part of the world. So while we might see the prices of food rise, we're probably not going to see any sort of real food shortage. But that doesn't mean that it's the same for people around the world. There's a lot of less fortunate developing countries in places like Asia where their number one food source are imported products from countries like Russia and Ukraine. And now, because of this disruption in their supply chain, they could face real food shortages, which could be a problem not just for them, but also for the United States. Because if you see a number of countries facing a food shortage, well, chances are the United States is probably going to get involved. And that could mean higher costs for the United States. And that's at a time where we're already facing a national debt crisis, a deficit crisis, and an inflation crisis. Not to mention that, not surprisingly, more food shortages could cause more unrest in different parts of the world, because if you're struggling to get food, well, that's been a big cause of unrest throughout history. Now, before I go over what you should do, because you probably don't need to go and stockpile a year's worth of food in your basement or go and build a bunker, although it's not a bad idea to have at least a couple weeks worth of food saved up, not because of this potential food shortage, but because of anything. You never know what's going to happen in the world, whether it's going to be something next year or 10 years from now. It's better to be prepared than sorry, so it's always good to have something like that, but not just because of this food shortage. Before I go over the things that you can do right now financially to protect yourself, I do want to remind you that if you're looking for an easy way to stay up to date on what's happening in the world, especially when it comes to the finance and business side of the world, you should check out Market Briefs. It's a free financial newsletter that I created. Our team is working very hard to break down the top finance and business news into a fun, witty, and entertaining email that you can read in 5 minutes or less every morning. My goal is to make this financial education and financial news more accessible, so it's super easy to understand, and I promise you're going to look forward to reading this email every single day. It is so much fun and it will keep you educated and it's completely free. So if you want to join Market Briefs, you can go to marketbriefs.com and I'll also put the link for you down in the description below. There are 4 things that I want to go over that can help you prepare for potentially higher prices of groceries and really anything else. The first thing is create a written budget. If you are not doing this already, it will blow you away at how much changes you will make with your finances if you just see where your money is going. So I started doing this really with my personal finances, and then I started doing this with my business finances, and automatically you don't have to change anything. As soon as you see where your numbers are going, it's going to change the way that you act with their money, the way that you do this. And you could do this with a piece of paper, with Google Sheets, Excel, it doesn't really matter, whatever works for you. All you need to do is you need to write down how much money you're making, and you need to know where this money is coming from if you have a number of different income streams. So know how much money you're making from each thing that you have, so that's your income. And then on a separate column, you want to write your expenses, and you need to know every penny that comes in and every penny that goes out. So pull up your bank statements, pull up your credit card statements, pull up anything that you have that has to do with your expenses, look at where your money is going and write it down. Categorize them. Put all your food charges down, all your restaurant charges, your grocery charges, your entertainment charges, your rent charges, your mortgage charges, your housing charges, your car charges. Break it all down and then just take a look at it. See where your money is going, and immediately, I don't even have to tell you what to do. You can just see where you can start cutting down some of your expenses, where some money is being wasted. You might even find some subscriptions that you didn't even know that you were paying for. I've done this before, and I have found hundreds of dollars literally by doing nothing except just looking at my bills and saying, oh, I'm still paying for the subscription. So if you're not doing this, please do a written budget. Do this once a month. It's going to change the way that you look at your money. Second, since this is a video about food, I finally have the opportunity to talk a little bit about food, because most of the time we're just talking about money and finances. But please consider starting to eat a little bit healthier, because your diet is what fuels you, and all that unhealthy food, that processed, cheap, nasty, junk, sugary stuff, it is not good for your body, it's not good for your mind, and it's also not good for your wallet, because now you're going to be spending a whole bunch of money on these cheap, nasty snacks, on this cheap, nasty pop. Just avoid that. Cut that stuff out and eat a little bit healthier. Eat cleaner. Eat better foods. Maybe that means eating out a little bit less. Or when you're eating out, don't order a Coke. Maybe avoid dessert once or twice. Eat something a little bit healthier, a little bit cleaner. Not only are you going to feel better, but you're going to have less money going out to a whole bunch of junk that's not good for you, not good for your mind, not good for your body, and not good for your bank account. Third, it is going to be more important than ever for you to be smarter with your money and to be buying more assets instead of liabilities. And the best example that I can give you of this is just by looking at a guy named Bernard Arnault, who was arguably the richest person in the world. Sometimes he's number 1, number 2, number 3, just depends on the day, but one of the richest people in the world. And the reason why he's the richest person in the world is because people love to look like they're rich. He is the CEO of Louis Vuitton, and he did not become the richest person in the world by just buying a bunch of Gucci and Louis Vuitton products. He became the richest person in the world because everybody else wants to buy Louis Vuitton and look rich. So if you are spending your money to look rich before you're actually wealthy, you are the reason why other people are getting rich while you stay broke. And number 4, this is going to be a recurring theme, especially as the cost of living is growing way faster than wages, but you need to earn more money. Not only so you can continue living your lifestyle, but also so you can have more money going towards your assets. Because what's going to happen, everybody goes down this financial journey where you start to see this sort of financial success, and now you get hooked. You're like, oh my God, I want to be wealthy. I want to be financially free. You start to understand how assets can change your life. You start to understand how investing can be so good and how passive income can change the way that you live. And once you start to realize that, you can start investing more aggressively. But then if you want to accelerate that even more, you're going to have to start earning more money. And maybe that means you go out and get a certificate so you can work harder at your job, or get a better pay at your job, or so you can get a promotion or get a bonus or whatever. That way you can get more money from your job. Maybe it means going out and looking for a different job. Maybe it means working outside of a job. Maybe you got to go and get a side hustle. Maybe you got to go and do something else, or maybe you go out and start your own business, right? I can't tell you what's going to work for you, because for me, I tried working a job for a brief period of my life, but I always knew that I was meant to be an entrepreneur. I always knew that I couldn't work for somebody else. I always knew that I wanted to create something and build something, and I was willing to work 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like, I was willing to sacrifice pretty much everything to do that. If you enjoyed this short clip from my longer videos, here's another clip that I think you'll love. And while you're at it, if you're interested in learning more about how to start generating passive income, our team put together an amazing guide that goes over what passive income is, how to start generating passive income, and different passive income strategies. These are things that you can start doing even if you don't have a lot of money. So if you want to read this free guide on how to start generating passive income for free, all you got to do is click that button right over there. Thank you for watching, and as always, keep hustling.